someone tweeted yesterday that living in Canada is like living above a meth lab. Surely your president has played his part in creating this situation.
Jeremy, really, please. I mean, and then you just show that and you don't show any of the looting. You don't show that a man is trying to protect his restaurant and he's beaten up by 15 people. Those are the kinds of things that you should be showing that would then explain why there is an uproar and why Donald Trump has responded as he has, because they are not, the governors, the mayors, the state legislators, they are not dealing with law and order.
Let me bring Ash in on that. Ash, because that's clear that Jan thinks that right at the edge of the protest, you've got to deal very severely with them, Ash.
So here's the thing. I do not want anybody to get hurt. I absolutely think that the preservation of human life is #1, the most important thing. I don't think anyone should get hurt. However, the fact that there is more outrage for a smashed up Foot Locker or a looted Target than the fact that justice has been denied for decades to black people, I think it stinks utterly of hypocrisy. And actually, when it comes to seeing images like that, which essentially looks a group of vigilantes armed to the teeth, intimidating peaceful protesters, let's call it what it is, these scenes are barbaric. Because at no point should we say that the protection of property is worth more than the protection of human life. And one gentleman whose restaurant was burnt down in Minneapolis was, of course, devastated. But he said, let my building burn, because my building can be replaced. It can be rebuilt. But black lives, they can't be replaced. George Floyd can't come back. Breonna Taylor can't come back. David McAtee can't come back. And hearing those comments, suddenly as though Republicans care about addressing endemic police violence. No, you only care because in every state in America, all 50 states, people are in uproar because of the violence. Now you care about peaceful protest. Before, you denigrated it or you ignored it. Right. And I'm sorry, the hypocrisy from Jan is stunning. Jan,
I'll give you a moment to come back in a second, and Dan as well. Oh, by the way, the footage we showed of the homeowners, I gather there was an offensive word on one of their T-shirts. I didn't see it, but if you did, apologies for that. Storm.
Lots of messages coming in on this. So Will says it's not the protest he's trying to stop, it's the looting, the pillaging and the violence. I agree with the stance. I think we've got a few calls coming in, actually. I wonder if we could speak to Sophie from Berkshire, who agrees that Donald Trump has gone too far and she thinks it's bullying.
Sophie, tell us why you think that.
Because he's like some tin pot dictator who's playing with his soldiers in the bedroom and then thinks, oh, I'm president of the United States, I can go and send my National Guard out to stop this looting and stuff. And I don't condone the looting because, unfortunately, whenever protest happens, it seems there's always a few hotheads and there's a few agitators in there. And especially it's to do with the weather, I think. When it's hot, people riot. People don't tend to riot in the winter.
Well, yeah, but the thing is he's doing it because, as Jan says, he's bringing in the army because of the looting. You don't like the looting, but you don't like him bringing in the army.
Well, the looting is up to the police. That's their job to control that.
That's true, Jan, isn't it? Leave it to the police.
Well, you also have to leave it to the governors and the state legislatures, because some of them are actually encouraging. And what you're also not covering is the fact that the people that have been arrested, generally, out of 7, 4 come from out of state. They're being paid to do this. In fact, with Ferguson, George Soros spent $33 million in helping destroy those businesses.
I can see Ash's disbelief at what you've just said, but we're going to take a break and come back to it. Actually, back to Dan. Dan, what did you make of what Jan was saying there?
Well, look, I do think there is a difference between looting and protesting, and I absolutely believe in the right to peaceful protest. But at the same time, you can't have a lawless society despite this revolting, despicable police brutality and that 8 minutes, 46 seconds, which will go down in history and hopefully provoke change in the US, because the killing of George Floyd has made us all realise yet again what that brutality is about. But I do want to ask Ash about this organisation or movement, however you might describe it, Antifa, because they are behind some of the violence at these protests, some of it. And Ash, they do want a society which overthrows the police. Antifa do not want a police force whatsoever. And I just ask Ash, do you support the aims and the goals of Antifa? And if so, Ash, how do you think society works without a police force, without people who can arrest criminals, who can get murderers hunted down, who can deal with rapists?
All right, Ash, you answer.
Yep, I can answer that quite easily. So Antifa isn't an organisation. It simply means anti-fascist. So it's used to describe a collection of leftists who generally don't have anything to do with each other outside of small circles, who consider themselves to oppose racism and white nationalism. Those goals I completely support. Now, when it comes to this issue of police abolition, it isn't Antifa who invented that idea. You've got to go right back to Angela Davis. You've got to think about the work of Michelle Alexander. It's actually quite a long history in the United States. For me, it's not about starting at the end point, i.e. get rid of police. It's looking at the fact that Minneapolis schools spend $1.1 million on working with the police. Now, that money could be put into mental health care, it could be put into early intervention, it could be put into the education system.
Wait, hang on. Did she answer your question down there?
No. Do you support the abolition of the police like Antifa do, Ash?
I am answering your question. This is called answering your question. You're asking me a binary question which doesn't engage with the politics. I'm explaining to you my position.
Okay.
Because factually you got Antifa wrong, and I had to spend some time correcting that.
All right, let's get back to Trump and whether Trump is making it worse. Fundamentally, our cause. Jan thinks not. Storm.
Well, we're going to speak to Charlotte now from London, who thinks Donald Trump hasn't gone far enough.
All right, go ahead, Charlotte.
Yeah, the reason I say that is because all Trump has done is said that he's going to send in the military, but he hasn't actually done it. So what's the point of saying it and not carrying through with the threat? It's a good idea because you can't tolerate people running around setting fire to stuff, which is very dangerous. And also, don't forget that America.
Think this through. You would have American soldiers, and you saw this during the Vietnam protests, on the streets, and you'd have American citizens shot by American soldiers. That would be an awful situation, wouldn't it?
Well, they don't actually have to shoot anyone, just their presence and the threat of them there should make people cease to be carrying out this behaviour, which is utterly irresponsible, highly dangerous, especially at the time that we're in, and America is the worst affected country in the whole world from COVID, and you know, I think that the military is needed because this is so dangerous. All of this, arson. People can die in fires.
Thank you, Charlotte. Storm.
We're going to speak to Sandy now from Lincolnshire, who says Donald Trump is going against the US Constitution. She's actually a dual citizen.
Which part of it, Sandy?
Okay, well, the Constitution per se does not allow the president to arbitrarily send in troops of any kind to any area.
Well, Jan was saying in some... I mean, you can in D.C., apparently, but I don't know.
He can in D.C. because D.C. is federal land.
Yeah, well, exactly. Sorry, Jan.
Okay. She's right that the governors have the authority within state borders under Posse Comitatus Act. It bars federal military from domestic law. However, then you can send in the U.S. forces to suppress domestic insurrection hindered by normal enforcement of U.S. law. So it is constitutional for him to do it. But what he is doing is not threatening. He is warning the governors that this is the backup, and he's asking them to deal with the issues in their state.
And I mentioned he used the phrase on a call to them, you've got to dominate or you're going to look like jerks. He also did this thing I want to ask you about, Jan, where he went to stand outside a church. We got this photo, the famous photo, which we're going to show you, where he is standing outside a church holding a Bible. And the issue, there we go. The issue here turned out to be that people who were peacefully protesting at that church were cleared with tear gas before the photo was taken. Are you happy with that?
Are you asking me?
Of course.
First off, they weren't cleared from the church. They were cleared from the square in front of the White House. But you know, you keep presenting the negative. In his speech for the space shuttle, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but my administration will always stand against violence, mayhem, and disorder. We will stand with the family of George Floyd, with peaceful protesters, and with every law-abiding citizen who wants decency, civility, safety, and security. We are working towards a more just society, but that means building up, not tearing down, joining hands, not hurling fists, standing in solidarity, and not surrendering to hostility. See, you're not presenting that side of him
Ash,
and what
there we are.
he's doing.
You'd approve of those words, Ash, wouldn't you?
Do you know something? What I find absolutely shocking about Jan is just how easily the hypocrisy just comes out of her mouth. I just did a quick Google and I had a look at what you had to say about Colin Kaepernick when he peacefully took a knee when the national anthem was being played in protest of police brutality in America, and you condemned him. Now, suddenly you want to talk about peaceful protest. Suddenly you want to talk about standing in solidarity with victims of police brutality. You didn't do that before. You didn't do it when it mattered. In fact, you condemned it. And the fact you are standing here and talking otherwise is astonishing.
First off, Ash, you know, you can accuse me of anything, but you've got a very biased view and are ignorant about some aspects of what's going on. I did condemn Colin Kaepernick because he is a paid person and he did not have a right to take a knee while he is supposed to perform. It would be no different than Jeremy Vine getting on his knee and refusing to broadcast. That was why I said that. So please, let's just understand the context of things and leave the personal attacks aside, all right? It just demeans you to do that.
I can see Ash is talking. Sorry, Ash, because Jan is talking, we can't hear you. Forgive us. Storm.
I think we've got time for another call. We're going to speak to Evans from West Sussex, who says law and order should be preserved. Donald Trump is doing his job.
So, OK, so you would be leaning towards Jan's views then, Evans?
Well, I'm not leaning to anyone's view. I'm leaning to my personal view.
Well, we all do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and what is
Forget
your view?
Jan. I'm speaking as Evans Mitchell. As I said before, law and order must be preserved by any means necessary.
Yeah, and so our issue here is Trump making it worse?
That's a silly question.
Well, give us a silly answer then. Whatever.
What I'm saying is that law and order need to be preserved by whatever means is necessary. It's not Mr. Trump's doing, okay? Another point I would like to make to Ash is this, if I have time. What she makes of this. Thomas Jefferson, some time ago, made a comment, all men were created equal. He then went on to say, at another stage, no one wishes more than I do to see proofs that nature has endowed our black brethren with talent equal to men of other colors.
Well, maybe thank you. I think it's good to end on that quote, actually. Thank you for your calls on this.